12 jurors are deliberating the fate of Kyle Rittenhouse in Kenosha, Wisconsin. The 18-year-old faces 5 felony charges after 2 men were shot and killed at a protest last year and another was wounded. Rittenhouse could get up to life in prison if found guilty of intentional homicide. Nancy Chen has the latest from the courthouse.
In an unusual process, Kyle Rittenhouse himself randomly selected the jury of 7 women and 5 men, all white except for one person, who will now decide whether the 18-year-old could spend the rest of his life in prison.
Folks, you can retire to consider your verdicts.
Rittenhouse is facing 5 felony charges for killing 2 men and seriously wounding another.
No justice! No peace!
Outside the courthouse, tensions are starting to grow as protesters and supporters wait for the jury's verdict. 500 National Guard troops are standing by outside Kenosha in case there's unrest. Over 8 days of testimony, prosecutors try to portray Rittenhouse as an instigator with an AR-15 style weapon who was looking for trouble. His defense argued Rittenhouse went to provide medical help in the town where his father lived and ultimately had to defend himself.
The prosecution in its closing argument was very strong on the issue of provocation, because if Kyle Rittenhouse is the initial aggressor, he loses the privilege of self-defense.
Tonight, more than 8 hours after deliberations began, the judge sent the jury home until tomorrow. The governor of Wisconsin is calling for peace in Kenosha and throughout the state, regardless of the outcome. Elaine?
Nancy Chen, thank you. For more, let's bring in Jessica Levinson. She is a CBS News legal contributor and professor at Loyola Law School. Jessica, welcome. So as we heard, Kyle Rittenhouse randomly selected the members of the jury. Why was he given this ability? Just how unusual is this?
It's unusual. The judge decided in this case that it wouldn't be the clerk as it typically is, or in some other jurisdictions, it can even be one of the attorneys. Now, I think this is really more about appearances, which do sometimes matter if it affects the jury. But again, it was a random picking. So there's no allegation here, of course, that Kyle Rittenhouse was able to rig who was picked, who was going to be a main juror and who was going to be an alternate. I think it really brings up questions of whether or not the jury would then feel some sort of strange connection to him because he's the one who pulled the name and he's the one who chose them to actually sit on the jury, or whether or not it would indicate that the judge has some sort of bias in favor of Kyle Rittenhouse. It could bring up issues of basically what is the judge doing here? Does the judge think it's, take your grandkid to work day, or is this a homicide trial? But it is important to remember, again, I don't think there's any allegation that he could have somehow picked certain jurors and not others. It definitely appears to be a random drawing.
This is such a high-profile case. Jessica, can you talk about some of the challenges the prosecution faced during this trial?
It's interesting because I think that the prosecution and the defense in some ways faced similar challenges. I mean, for the prosecution, I think the main challenge was saying, when we look at all the video evidence, it's interesting because I think the video evidence was really helpful and really harmful for both sides at the same time because there was just so much video evidence. But I think for the prosecution, it was really for them to say, don't just look at the moments that Kyle Rittenhouse might have been under, threat. Look at this as a much larger picture. Look at the fact that this is somebody who does not live here, who should not have lawfully, allegedly, had that gun, who traveled across state lines, who came to this place and said that he was trying to defend property, but the property owners themselves said, we weren't really that worried about it. So their challenge, I think, was to say there were so many decisions along the way that Kyle Rittenhouse shouldn't have made and did make or failed to make. And that's what led to this. And again, it's key for them to try and show him as the initial aggressor, that he put himself in this situation, he set the wheels in motion, and therefore he cannot claim that his actions were reasonable. He cannot claim that they were self-defense.
Well, as we heard, the Rittenhouse defense team used some strong language in their closing argument, even praising the 18-year-old's actions that night. What's your assessment, Jessica, on the case that they presented?
So I think they tried very hard to present a case of a young man who was just trying to go protect people and property, and say that when he was there, he found himself in a situation where, and they kept framing this very smartly under the self-defense law in Wisconsin, saying he found himself in a situation where he had no choice. He wanted to be the savior, and then he became the person who was the victim. He was the one under attack. And the defense, well, the prosecution is going to try and say, look at this big time frame. The defense is going to try and really say, look at this moment. Kyle Rittenhouse is under physical and verbal threat. He was, for instance, attacked by a skateboard. Somebody threw a paper bag at him. He was being chased. What would you have done in that situation? So how did the defense fare? I mean, I hate to kind of not answer the question, but we'll know when the jury comes back if they identify with Kyle Rittenhouse, if they think that his actions under the circumstances were reasonable.
And Jessica, now that the case is in the jury's hands, can you talk a little bit more about that process of deliberation?
Yeah, it's interesting because so much of this trial, of course, has been out in the open. We've had this, really, the courthouse doors have been open for all of us to have this education into this case. And now it's all darkness. Now it's all at very best opaque. So the jury's going to go back. They almost certainly already picked a foreperson. And then we don't know exactly how they're going to proceed, if they're going to take an initial vote, which often is the case, or if they'll decide to go count by count and then take votes that way. I will say that the jury already has asked some questions. They asked some questions about instructions that talk about self-defense, that talk about the intent needed in order to commit some of these crimes. Hard to read too much into their questions, but one thing really to look for, as we're basically in this blackout period where there's nothing to look for other than what is the jury asking about, there are 5 charges here, 5 counts, but there are lesser included offenses. So we could absolutely see a mixed verdict. We could see guilty on some, we could see a hung jury on other counts, and maybe there are some counts where the jury would say the prosecution just didn't prove this beyond a reasonable doubt. That's not unusual, particularly in a case like this.
All right, Jessica Levinson. Jessica, thank you very much.
Thank you.